Hello. Hi, everyone. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Great. So I see
Yeah.
Crystal and
Yes.
Sheila and Rebecca.
Yes.
Awesome. Great. How are you guys?
We're
Good.
doing good. Good.
Good. So this is my first Zoom meeting, so I hope it goes well. If there are any technical difficulties, we'll just have to work through it. But so far, looks good. I can see all of you all, and you guys can see me and hear me?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, great. So I guess, the way that I think that these will run is I'm just going to kind of be a resource for you guys. So if you have any questions, I'm going to kind of leave it up to you guys to lead the way. Let me know how I can help. So does anybody have any homework questions or problems that you've been working on or topics that you'd like to discuss?
This is Sheila. I did have a question. Will the Zoom meetings be recorded so we can go back for reference?
Yes. Okay, so that's a very good question, Sheila. I have it set to record, and assuming that everything goes as planned, it's automatically recording and it'll be uploaded so that you can go back and watch it, and the people who aren't here can benefit from it as well. With that being said, did you have any specific homework questions or topics to discuss?
How do you get those histograms and the ogives and all that to get into your homework, the graphs?
Into your homework. So how are you creating your histograms? Are you doing it in like Excel or?
I'm trying to do it in Word, and when I get my histogram on there, it's not letting me put my numbers or anything on there.
So you're creating in Word, and then like ordinarily, I guess I'm not sure how you're submitting your homework. I thought that all of your homework was on Blackboard. So can you kind of help me out here, like explain, like give me a little bit more information?
I'm doing it on Word, and then I'm saving it, and then I'm uploading it to the Blackboard.
Okay, and can you tell me like where you're running into the problem? Like, so you just can't. Are you wanting to copy and paste something?
Yes, I'm trying to make my histograms and stuff so I can put the information on the histograms and all that, on the graphs and stuff.
I don't have a lot of experience in creating histograms in Word. Usually when I do histograms, I'm either doing it in Excel or on some other data software. So I think that maybe part of the issue there might just be with Word itself.
Okay.
can you tell me, like in Word, like what are you? I wouldn't even know how to create a histogram in Word. What are you doing? Can you kind of
I
like?
go to where it says insert, where it says insert the graphs and all that stuff, and then it has a place to choose histogram. And when you do, and when you copy it over, it just won't let you put the numbers or anything. And if you do put the numbers, that the graph lines are really off.
You know, one option may be if you create something in a Word document. Have you tried like saving that as a PDF?
No, sir.
You know, one advantage of putting things in PDF format is it's kind of like just taking a picture of it. And so basically then whatever you're seeing should be, you know, how it's saved, and then you should be able to alter it after that. And so that might be an option. Otherwise, maybe doing like a screenshot. Do you have something like a snippet tool where you
I
can?
do.
Yeah, you know, that would be another way where you could just like take a picture of something, and that way, you know, exactly what you're seeing is going to be captured, and you know, then when you upload it or you know, copy and paste it, it won't change at all. So that might be a solution. Yeah, one of those two things, either saving it as a PDF or just using a snipping tool to just like
Okay.
capture that image.
Okay.
I have to admit, this is my first time coaching for this class, and so as far as like your homework assignments, I haven't seen yet like the format. So when you're saying that you're like creating a histogram and you're wanting to put it into your homework, I'm not sure like what that entails. You know, so yeah, with just that with that limited knowledge, I think that those might be two things that you could try.
Okay.
You know what? Well, yeah, I think I'll just leave it at that for now. And then what I might do, Crystal, is see if I can open up your homework, and I won't do it like during this session, but I'll look at the. Is this your first homework assignment
Yes.
for this week? Maybe I should take a look at that and kind of just see how I would do it. I'm sorry, I haven't done that yet.
Okay.
But those are two things you could try in the meantime. Has anybody else, maybe you could chime in and tell
Do
us
we
if you.
have to upload our homework in any kind of format, or can we do a PDF just attach like a Word document, or does it have to be Excel?
So that's probably a question that Dr. White should answer. Since you know, that would be his preference as far as the format, and I don't want to speak on his behalf.
I guess
I'm going to send him an email though, and to ask about that, but I hesitate to say, because you know, basically the way that this works is if you have questions about like the actual statistics, like the computations or concepts, I'm sure I can help you with that. But some of the, you know, logistics and things like that,
I got you.
that's really going to be up to the professor. So
I got you. Just the
yeah.
way that we pretty much do our homework is what you want to, the physical doing it is where you would help.
Well, more like with the concept of how, the concept behind it, like how what you actually submit. That's more up to Dr. White. But you, like,
I guess I was just thinking if the way she's doing her, like if it's in an Excel or actually like writing it out and then just typing it out is where I was thinking a Word document. It was how she's using a Word document.
Yes, yeah. So is that true, Crystal? So you're basically doing your homework in Word and then trying to get a final document to then upload to send to Dr. White?
Yes.
Yeah, so if that's the case, I think that I would try to, as far as any graphs or things that you're creating, I think I would just use a snipping tool to to insert things into a Word document to submit those. Sheila, I'm back to you with audio. How are things going with your homework?
I've started on my homework. I've not completed it yet, but so far I think I'm doing okay.
Yeah. So are you doing like the chapter 2 homework? So are you also working on like histograms and
Okay. I just started on this today with
Yeah.
my work schedule. I'm just getting started on this. I've been watching the videos and just now getting started. So
yeah, okay. All right. Let's see, who else is here? Is it Eddie? Or
It's Edie. Hi.
Edie, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. But I do have a question.
Good. Yeah, I think you've sent me an email, right?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Okay. Great. Yeah.
Thank you for responding. Okay, so it's on number 13. I don't know if I'm going to go out of this just so I can look at the problem. Okay.
And I have an older version of the textbook, but they're very similar. So you said number 13. Is this in 2.2?
Yes, the PDF that he put in the homework. It's actually 2-1 is the exercise.
Okay.
I guess this would be from the 7th edition that he put
Yeah.
up.
Okay. But in section 2.1, and you said
The ages of Declaration of Independence signers.
and I'm sorry, tell me again, which problem?
Number 13, it says the ages of Declaration of Independence signers.
Yeah, I see it here. And honestly, not a lot changes from one edition to the next. And so,
Okay.
yeah, I have the same problem here. Ages of Declaration of Independent signers.
Yes.
Yeah, and so you're going to construct a grouped frequency distribution and a cumulative frequency distribution for the data using 7 classes. Gotcha. Okay. So where are you in the problem?
Okay, so I've marked this from earlier. I hope I can remember exactly what I'm trying to ask, but I think it's because I'm not getting even 7 classes from, so I'm getting the range to be from 27 to 70.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so if I'm doing this right, I calculate my width to be 43 and then divide by 7.
Yeah.
And anyway, I'm trying to get, I'm sorry, I know I'm not asking you this correctly. I should have written down exactly.
Do you know what? We've got plenty of time, so don't
Okay.
worry about it. Well, and right now you're the only one with a question, so just take your time. Don't be stressed about it.
Okay, let me go back out and look at this again. If somebody else has a question, then go ahead.
I will say that I think you're off to a good start. So you already, so if I were going to work this problem, and I think I'm going to guess this is what you've done. Did you already put the data in order from least to greatest?
Yes, I think it's where I was trying to get classes, maybe. I'm trying to form classes down through there, and each of them are supposed to have a width of 7, correct? And I'm supposed to have 7 classes.
You're supposed to have 7 classes. Now let's see, I don't see that it says, let me read over it here carefully.
Okay.
It just says 7 classes. I don't think it specifies a width. So I think that's going to be, up to you. And I think you're on the right track. You already mentioned that there was a range of 27 to 70. So that's what made me think that you'd probably already put it in order, because you've already found that the smallest age there is 27, and that the oldest signer was 70. So you've got a lower limit and an upper limit for the total data set. And I heard you say that the overall width is 43, and that makes me think that you probably took 70 minus 27, because that would be 43. but that's like the overall range for your data set. And so that's what we're trying to kind of divide up into classes.
Okay, so I'm
And-
trying to make each class even, I guess it is. And going from 27 to 70, I'm not being able to divide them out equally.
Yeah, but that's going to happen, in a data set. You're not always going to get whole numbers. And so this is a case where, 43 divided by 7, it doesn't work out evenly. So you end up getting a decimal because that's 6.1 something, 6 1/7. So you're right, that doesn't work out evenly. So, what can we do from there?
I don't know. Let me work on this again. I know I'm not making my question clear because for some reason I've got a list. Can you see this?
Yeah.
So I have a list going from, I don't know why I changed the 27 to 25 going down through here. So let me look and see what it was.
No,
Okay.
I-
Let me leave it.
What you're doing is great. Like that is, yeah. So does maybe someone has anybody else tried to work this problem? This is again number 13 from section 2.1. Either Crystal or Sheila or Rebecca, have you looked at this problem?
I have. I came up with 6.1, so I just left it at 6.
Yeah.
And then I added 27 to our 27 plus 6. And then I added 6 to everything else, like as I went down.
Yeah. Okay. So here's one thing to think about. In this textbook, one thing that I think can get lost. There's a whole lot of like vocabulary and terminology here, and formulas. I think it kind of makes something a little bit more complicated than it needs to be, because it really actually can be kind of intuitive. When you're thinking about like ages, and if you were to divide people up into age groups, so forget about this problem in particular, and just think about what's a natural way to like group people in terms of age. Like if I were just to say, like, we're wondering about the people who are enrolled in this class, and we were going to say, let's like see how many are in certain age groups. Like, what would be a natural way to group people according to age? Like if you had to come up with different categories, is there something that maybe comes to mind?
Just by tens.
Exactly. Yeah. That would be a very natural way to do it. Yeah. Oftentimes you say, like, I'm in my 20s, I'm in my 30s or 40s or whatever. That's an excellent way. And so don't lose sight of the fact that in this textbook, that some of these things should just be intuitive and very natural. And so grouping things by 10, would be a very natural way, because these are ages of people who have signed, the Declaration of Independence. So, if we didn't have the data set in front of us, you might just ahead of time think, oh, well, probably a natural way to do that would be, are there certain people in their 20s or 30s? But, what would happen if we did that? So we would have maybe a first group that was maybe anybody from 20 to 29. Then you would have people from 30 to 39, 40 to 49, 50 to 59, 60 to 69, and then 70 to 79. So that would be, let's see, we'd have people in their 20s, their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. Now, that would give us 6 groups. Now, one thing that I notice here is that the instructions say we should have 7 classes. Okay, so that first guess, that first try, just doing things by decades, that's probably not what they're looking for here. So we probably want to think of maybe smaller groups. Now, what if we did start at like 25? Something to keep in mind, you don't always have to start for your first lower class limit. You don't have to start at the minimum in your data set. So the minimum here is 27. So, I mean, I guess you could start at 27, but it doesn't seem like a natural or intuitive number to start with. I think 25 is something that's going to be a little bit lower than that. So we're certainly going to capture that minimum age, but we don't have to feel like we're stuck and that we have to start at what's actually the minimum in the data set. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So I think 20 is going too young, but I think 25 is probably going to be like a nice, well, it's not an even number, but it's a multiple of 5. And so if I was going to start like with my first group of people, I would probably start at like 25. Now, earlier we said that, when you take your overall range, which is 43, and then you say, well, I'm going to try to divide this into 7 groups, and we got 6.1. So, that's a decimal. I really don't, want to have to introduce decimals unless it's like a last resort. So let's say that we start the first, group, lower class at 25, and let's see what happens maybe if we did do in increments of 6.
Okay, that's where I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought I read that when you get a decimal like that, you're always to round up. Is that not true? I thought I read it in the book somewhere. And then if there's no rounding, then you just automatically add 1.
Well, okay, again, here I'm going to say, I hesitate to get too bogged down in the rules. I know that that's going to, it can be kind of frustrating, but let's just say, yes, you always do round up. So let's say that we're going to go with 7. And let's just see this process is kind of iterative. Keep in mind what your goal is here. And your goal is that you're trying to organize this data in a way so that it's easy for people to make sense of it. Now, sometimes this tool where we like figure the overall range and then divide it up into a certain number of classes, and then we get a decimal, and then we're always going to round up. You may end up with a result that really just, I don't know, that's not very inviting for your audience. And so it's kind of a process where this gives you a way to start, but oftentimes you go back and you kind of readjust that. But let's just go with what you've said, where we round up and we say that we're going to go with a 7.
You don't have to. I just didn't want to. My goal is to get a good grade, and I didn't want to.
The point is here, I don't want you to be afraid about making a mistake.
Okay.
Because there's really not one right answer. And sometimes you just use these as tools to get you started.
Okay.
But don't be like locked into, I have to make this work.
Okay.
You have to give yourself a little bit of flexibility and say, you know what, this is a tool to help me get me started. But if I get started in the process and it's starting to get worse and worse and worse, you just back up for a second and say, well, wait, why am I using 7? It's kind of arbitrary. Maybe I should use 6, or maybe I should round down, maybe I should round up. But so let's just start with the suggestion that we do round up. So let's say that we're going to use a class width of 7. So we took our 43, we divided by 7, we got 6 point something, and it suggested that we round up to 7. So if my first lower class limit is 25,
Okay.
and I'm going to have a class width of 7,
Okay.
what would my next lower class limit be?
33.
And can you tell everybody why yeah, I agree. But can you tell everybody else why you said that?
because 25 plus the 7 would be 32. So my first class would be 25 to 32. So the next class would start with 33. No?
Okay. Let's try it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that all right?
Because again, here I want you to know that there are there's 7 of us here. We could all come up with different solutions. There's not one right solution to this. And so as long as we all end up with, the only stipulation here is we're all starting with the same data. And we all have to come up with 7 classes.
Okay.
But there's not one way of doing that. There are, I hate to say infinitely many, but there are probably infinitely many ways of doing that. And your way is just as good as anybody else's.
Okay.
So I like your way. Let's make the first class, it's going to be 25 to 32.
Okay.
And so what should the next one be?
That one will be 33 to 40. So the next one will be 41.
To,
I'm sorry, 48. And
Yeah.
then the next will be 49 to 56. Right? Did I do that
Yeah.
right? No. Yes, that's right. And then the next one will be 57 to 64.
yeah,
And the next one, 65 to 73. 2.
72.
And then the next
Now
one.
let's
1,
double
2,
check.
4,
So
5,
if we use that process, how many classes are we going to have?
Well, we're supposed to have 7, I thought, according to the problem. But
Yeah.
you're saying it does that you don't have to? Yeah, so far we have 6.
Yes. Okay. So you know what? That was a great way to get started. So
Okay.
we're on the right track. We kind of have an idea about what we need to adjust. Now,
Okay.
right now we have 6 classes. Our goal was to have 7.
Okay.
So what could we do? Maybe what's a minor adjustment where we could maybe shrink our class width so that we end up with more classes.
Okay. Then go back to the 6.
Let's try it. Yeah. See, here's the thing. As I said, if you start something out and it doesn't quite work, it's easier to adjust it than to just not start at all. Like, don't be intimidated by it to where you just don't start.
Okay.
So let's go back. So let's stick with the 25.
Okay, that's just because you just chose it, right? Just
Well, I think didn't you say that the youngest was 27?
yes.
And wasn't 25 your idea?
Yeah, I don't know where I came up with it,
Yeah.
but yes.
But you know what? That's fine. 25
Okay.
is good because it does capture that lowest age. So if we start with 25, there's no one younger than 25.
Right.
So we wouldn't want to go down to like age 0. And we don't want to go too far below 27, but 25 seems like a good place to start. So what if we just did increments of 6?
Okay.
Then what would happen? We'd have 25 to what, 31?
Uh-huh.
And then what?
32 to 38. 39 to 45. And 46 to 52. And 53 to 59. And 60 to 66. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then that last one will be 67 to 73. And we're in our range.
So yeah. Now, so we've captured the youngest and we've captured the oldest. And that's if there aren't any rules, that's it. You just
Okay.
need to make sure you capture all the data that's in your data set.
Okay.
And so so it looks like you've got a good system there. Certainly that 25 to 31 class is going to
Mhm.
capture your 27-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
That 67 to 73 is going to capture your 70-year-old. So we've got the youngest and the oldest. So we're going to get everybody in between by default. And you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You've got 7 classes.
Mhm.
I think that's awesome. I think that's going to work.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, is that the only way to make this work? No.
Okay.
Yeah. And, the fact that the book says, to do 7 classes, yeah, whose idea was that? I mean, there's nothing that's even, super logical about that.
Are
Yeah.
you great at homework?
If I didn't have, if that had not been in the instructions,
Uh-huh.
7 classes,
Yeah.
if I had just been given the raw data, what I would have probably done is just said 25 to 29, 30 to 34, 35 to 39. If I hadn't been given any instructions and just the raw data, that's probably what I would have done.
Okay.
But, we were given those specific instructions. So we were supposed to end up with 7 classes. That's one thing about doing, homework exercises in a textbook. They do have to kind of make everybody conform in some way. But, if you were just doing this on your own, you probably would have done it a little bit differently. But, I think what you've come up with now is great.
Okay.
Is everybody on the same page with us so far? Crystal?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Does it make sense where we are?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Good. Sheila, how are you with us?
Yes, that made sense to me.
Yeah. Rebecca,
Yes.
are you with us?
Yes.
Yeah. So my point is, don't become so so concerned about getting it right the first time. Just get started, and then if you have to make some adjustments, so be it. But don't become frozen. Just where I have to do it right the first time, or it's a failure, because that's not the way anybody does it. You just kind of have to try something out. If it works out perfectly the first time, that's great, but that's rarely the way it happens. You usually just get started and then make some adjustments. So I think that we have a pretty good system now, though, with this group of classes. So we're going to go from 25 to 31, and then 32 to 38, 39 to 45, 46 to 52, 53 to 59, 60 to 66, and then 67 to 73. So those are our 7 classes. So what should we do next?
Okay. I'm going back to look at the PDF. I don't know if it blocks me or looks like I leave. Okay. So we're constructing are you still wanting to work on this problem is what you're asking?
Well, yeah, since you brought it up, I think, why don't we just go ahead and just do the whole thing?
I don't want to hog the time. Okay. Construct a grouped frequency distribution and a cumulative frequency distribution.
Yeah, okay.
That's our goal.
So now that we've decided on our different classes, what do we do next?
Construct a group frequency distribution. The tally marks and the frequency.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah, I'd have to count these up. Oh my.
It's going to take a minute.
Yeah.
This is so how many of you all are like working in like Excel or some other such software?
I'm not working in Excel. I've just been doing it on paper. I haven't even tried that.
Okay.
It's Madison.
Yeah, okay, Madison.
Am I supposed to?
Well, of course, there's nothing wrong with just doing this, the good old-fashioned pencil and paper. So, I mean, it can take a little bit longer, but you know what? Why don't we all just take a minute because I think this is a good example. There are lots of concepts that we can discuss based on this one problem. So why don't we just take a minute and let's see if we can come up with the tallies that go in each group, and then let's compare our results. Does that sound okay?
Yes.
Okay. Now, if you're still calculating, keep at it. If you're finished, I'm going to ask you to check my work, okay? So I'm going to hold this up. And I know you can't see me, but can you see my table there?
Yeah.
Let's be each other's checks and balance. Do you have any discrepancies with my numbers, or are we in agreement?
I didn't get the same thing on 2 of them, but I could definitely not be right.
Well, that's one thing when you're doing this by hand, when they're not in order. That is an advantage if you have it like in Excel, because then there's that sort feature, and so it'll just put things in order for you automatically, and so you don't have to worry about doing a tally. But otherwise, which numbers were different for you?
I got 4, 14, 14, 13. So the 2 14s I was different on. But let's go with your numbers.
Okay. Honestly, really, as far as like the demonstration, it won't matter. Now, as far as your homework, you should go back and check it. So don't assume I'm right, because I make mistakes just like anybody else, especially when I'm doing it by hand. And so if I were doing this for my homework, I would definitely go back and double check those numbers. One thing I would always suggest, and I'm going to hold my notebook back up here for a second. You see the count here at the bottom?
Yes.
So I have 55. The one thing that I did, as soon as I had my class counts, is I added up that column, and I got 55. And so I went back to the book, and I made sure that there were 55 in the original data set.
Okay.
Now, one way that you can know for sure that you've made a mistake is if those things don't match.
Okay.
So if there were, it's like 60 signers of the Declaration of Independence, and I only had 55, I would know immediately I'd made a mistake.
Okay.
So right now I'm not positive my numbers are right, but I know that they're not way off because I have the right number that I'm supposed to.
Apparently everybody else got what you got, so we must be good. We're good.
Anybody else, like, did your numbers, how did they compare? Can anybody either confirm or refute, or I'll come up there one more time?
I didn't get the same, but I didn't use the same numbers either. I used 27, so.
Okay, all right, so that's fine. Yeah, 20. Again, so since there's not one right way to do this, if you have different classes, obviously you're going to have different counts in those classes. Did you have a total of 55 though?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just go on from there. Let me ask you a couple of questions. If you had to define or list, let's say, your lower class limits. Now, again, some of us do this a little bit differently. But where are the lower class limits in this list? Let's just go off of my example. What are the lower class limits?
The 25, 32, 39.
Yes, yes. And the upper class limits are the numbers on the right-hand side, the 31, 38. Now, what about my class boundaries?
Like Is that the one we're going down a half a point, like it'll be 24.5 to 31.5?
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. And then how would you find the class width then?
Subtract either your class or your class boundary, right?
Subtract either your class or your class bound.
Class limit or class boundaries from each other, the high and the low.
Well, so here's one thing. Well, I want to stick with the way your textbook says it, which is to take
Okay.
your boundaries. Yeah.
The boundaries. Okay.
So if you took 31.5 and subtracted 24.5, you get 7.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And notice, I want to make sure that's just in case that comes up that, like in a vocabulary question, or if you have a multiple choice question. In this example, when you first look at this and you see like the 25 to 31, you might immediately think, oh, okay, so the class width is 6. But remember, according to this textbook, the way you calculate class width is the difference between the boundaries. So it's actually 7.
It is.
So that's a tricky thing there.
Okay.
Yeah. So you see what I mean? You can look at it and say, oh, well, the answer is 6. No, it's not. It's actually 7 here. Does everybody follow that? That's a really tricky concept.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, your class width is the difference between the boundaries, not the limits. Okay. So what about if you wanted to find the midpoint, for instance, of that first class? How would we do that? And again, I'm going to put my work back up here because I know some of us use different classes, but if we're going off of my example, where's the midpoint?
Was it upper class plus lower class divided by 2?
There again, it's the upper boundary plus the lower boundary divided by 2. So there's it's a technical distinction between the upper limit and upper boundary and the lower limit and lower boundary. In my example, 25 and 31 are the limits, and the boundaries are where we put the decimals on it. So either way, if you look at the midpoint for that first class, it would be 28. And you can check that math. That, you know, if you add 24.5 and 31.5, you get 56. Divide that by 2, and you get 28. Now, again, I'm only doing this for illustrative purposes. This particular question, number 13, did not ask you to do that. But I know that those are concepts in this chapter. And so I thought, while we're doing this one problem, we might as well discuss, you know, everything that we can as far as content from this section. But okay, so now we have our frequency distribution. The other part of the question was cumulative frequency distribution. Does anybody have any ideas on that?
Okay. If nobody wants to talk, I don't want to do all the talking. I'm saying take the lower class limit, not boundary, right? The lower class limit, say like the first one would be less than 25, and you'd have your frequency would be 0. And
that's true. Yeah, there's nobody under 25, so that would have a, yeah. So
and your next one would
so
be
that would have a frequency of 0. If we were to add a class, you know, below that 25 to 31, yeah, it would have a frequency of 0. So that's true. Okay, go on. What were you going to say?
And then less than 32 would be your next one. And that would be 4. No.
Yeah, keep going. Yeah,
Okay. And then less than 39. And then you would take the 12 plus the 4 would be 16.
exactly.
Okay.
Here's the thing. When you're just counting your, when you look at, if you use like tally marks, which, you know, that's what I kind of did over here. This is where I was using tally marks.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, in this, when I was like doing like my little, usually this is like work that you would do off to the side, you know, in a final presentation, like in a meeting, nobody would actually see this work. But here are my tally marks. Now, if I just add those across, I get frequency. Now, if I keep a running tally, meaning that it's accumulating, that's cumulative frequency.
Okay.
So what you've just said, where, you know, you took 4 and then you add the 12 and you get 16. For me, for the next cumulative frequency, I need to add another 16 to that. That would give me what?
32.
Yeah. And then what?
And then add the 13. So it'd be
You got it?
45. And then 48.
Yes.
Less than 60. And then less than 67 would be 53.
You got it?
No?
Yeah, no, that was right. You're right.
Okay. And then the last one would be less than 73 would be 55.
Yes. Now, what's significant about that last cumulative frequency? What do you notice about it? Or what stands out? Where have we seen that number, 55?
The total.
Yes. So by the time you get to your last class, your cumulative frequency, it should be everything. Everything should have accumulated. It should be your total. Now,
Okay.
again, this is another good point to stop and just check your work. So that cumulative frequency, when you get to the last one, it should equal your total.
Okay.
If it doesn't, you know, just don't go to pieces. Just go back and just add it up again. The
Okay.
both numbers should always match up.
Okay.
So there are 2 points in this process where I like to just stop and check my work. The first one was when I initially calculate that total, I make sure that it matches the total in my original data set. And then here's a second point. When I finish my cumulative frequencies, I make sure that also matches that total.
Okay.
Honestly, if those things all match up, you're good to go. And we could have all done this with slightly different systems as far as creating classes. It wouldn't matter. But we should all get 55 in our total columns and in that last cumulative frequency. Can we take it one step further?
Yes.
What if I ask you for the relative frequency?
I would have to flip through my book.
Okay.
Someone can answer.
Does anybody have an idea? While we're, if you want to look in your book, that's great. Or any ideas on what I mean by relative frequency? Rebecca, are you doing okay?
It's how many times an answer occurs in the question?
I'm sorry?
Is it how many times the answer occurs in the question?
Well, it's a related concept, I think. So when you take relative frequency, think percentage or proportion. So if you want to convert something from just a straight up frequency to a relative frequency, what that means is relative to the total. So for instance, I'm going to put my notebook up here again. here where it says that I have,
4.
it doesn't matter in the first class. If you say I have 4, that's 4 out of the 55.
Mm-hmm.
Now, most people, rather than report that as a fraction, 4 out of 55, they would just, do the, pardon me for one second, I'm going to grab my calculator. So when you take 4 and divide it by 55, we get a decimal, which is 0.0727. So, I'm actually rounding there. It's actually a decimal that goes on and on and on and on. I usually like to round at 4 decimal places. Now, that's just a matter of taste, to tell you the truth. So I don't know what Dr. White has said, if he wants you to round at 2 or at 4. I always just think it's a good rule of thumb to just round at 4 decimal places, but ultimately, I would rather report that as a percentage. Now, how do I convert the decimal 0.0727 to a percentage?
Times 100?
Yeah, times 100. So what would that be?
7.27. 2727. I don't know where you round
Yeah,
them.
but let's just leave it at this point. Once we've converted to a percentage, let's just stop at 2 decimal places.
Okay.
And so that would be 7.27%.
Okay.
And you could just keep going on down the line. So the next one, if you look back at your frequency, it was 12. That's in the 32 to 38 group. There were 12 people. That was 12 out of 55. And that gives you a decimal of 0.218. And then if we're going to round up 4 decimal places, we should make it 2182. So that's 21.82%. And you could just keep going on down the line. I'm going to hold this back up here again. You see here where I put, here's just the decimal. And then I've made it a, just percentage. Now, if I continue on all the way down here and I add up all these percentages, what number should I get down here?
Would it be 100%?
You got it. Yeah, that's everybody. So, so as far as percentages go, if I've accounted for everyone, that's 100%. So yeah, in that column, you should always get 100%. Now keep in mind, in this example, which is a good example, we did some rounding because I decided I'm only going to keep 4 decimal places, or once I convert it to a percentage, I'm only going to keep 2 decimal places. So it could be that when you add up that column that you're off by, maybe you'll get 99.99, or maybe you'll get 100.01. Don't let that concern you. That's likely just due to rounding, but it should be very close to 100%. If we didn't do any rounding, it would be exactly 100%. So what else could we do with this? I mean, imagine that, that you are not in a statistics class, but that you are in a history class. And it's up to you to give a presentation about the signers of the Declaration of Independence. And you want to present this information to your audience, and you think it's going to be of interest to your audience, the ages of the people who signed the Declaration of Independence. What could you do? What would be like if you were going to do a PowerPoint presentation? You probably don't want to show your audience this. What would be a good option? something better than just this table.
Would you do a histogram with it or no?
Yes, perfect. That's awesome. That's exactly what you do with it. Yeah, yeah. From here, this makes it very easy to construct a graph. A histogram would be a great option. Yeah, and from here, it's really easy to construct a histogram. Once you have everything laid out in a table like this, you can quickly turn that into a graph. And a histogram would be a great option.
Okay.
Do you, any ideas on how we would start that?
That's what I've been working on, because I've been working on like problem 13. No, I don't know. On section 2.1's homework.
Yeah.
And I've on the histograms, the frequency polygraphs, and the ogives.
Yeah.
And histogram, but the frequency polygraphs and the ogives, I kind of mix them up a little.
Well, I think with the ogives, that's just basically when you do it in a cumulative
Okay.
form.
Whereas
That's
frequency polygons is the frequencies, and the ogives is like the cumulative where it keeps going.
exactly, yeah.
Okay, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
So those two things are like very closely related.
Yeah.
Now, in this case, I think the histogram would be the option because, you know, if you look at our data here in the table, these are ages which only make sense in order. Now, I don't want to rearrange these categories now. You know, they go, you know, one naturally follows the other. And so when I create a graph, I want to keep my data in the same order. So a histogram is going to do that for me. We're running out of time. Let me just quickly give you a basic outline of where we would go from here. Let's see. Can you guys see that okay? I just did a quick sketch here where I have, you know, horizontal axis. I'm kind of looking at this in reverse, but so here's my horizontal axis, and then I'm going up here, I have a vertical axis. And what I started to do along here was to just create little, you know, groups for my age groups. So notice I put a group here, which was, you know, 25 to 31, and the next one, which is what, 32 to 38, and I would just keep, you know, going across here. And then to go up the side, I have a choice. I could either use my relative frequency or just my frequency. Now, I chose to label this as a count. Count and frequency mean the same thing. Now, I happened to go from, you know, 0 up to 20. There's nothing magical about that choice, 20. The only reason I came up with that number is I looked at my original frequency here, and I saw the highest frequency that I have is 16. And so I want to make sure I at least capture that 16. So then I would just start to add little bars. Like this. So, you know, there were 4 people in this group. There were 12 people in the next group, and I would just keep adding bars. and the height of the bar is going to correspond to the count. Does that make sense? Yeah, but that's just enough to let you get started. But yeah, that is our time for this session. But I think that was an excellent problem for us to work through, because it does allow us to discuss a lot of the concepts and vocabulary that are in this section. So yeah, thanks for bringing up that problem. Before I sign off, are there any maybe like quick questions that I can answer before we go?
Not right now.
Okay,
See you a bit later.
yeah, well, I thank you guys for joining me. Each week I'm going to try to switch up the times for our meeting, the days and times, because I want to open it up to as many people as possible. It looks like, as far as the when is good thus far, for most people, weekday evenings work best. So I think that what's going to happen is that all of our meetings are likely going to be Monday through Friday at about 8 o'clock. But I might just switch the day of the week around. But just keep your eyes open for an announcement from Dr. White in the course. I guess in Blackboard, in the announcements and an email about when the next week's session will be, okay?
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, you guys have a good night.
Thank you.
All right,
You
bye-bye.
too.